I was very inspired about how you are using AI to solve problems of business. A lot of people that are trying to start a business and they may not have huge capital for workforce, hiring so many people. But I know you and I know that there's a lot of ways to actually do things more efficiently now using AI. Give people some tips and very strategic advice.
You don't have to be overly technical, obviously, like understanding how to use your computer and how to use your productivity apps. For me, and I'd seen it for a few years now, I knew people were spending too much on technology and they were paying for things they didn't need and using these tools that really didn't solve any problems for them. Understanding how to instruct AI from high level, which is kind of called prompt engineering now, was a really critical part to that. And I learned that after I was using ChatGPT the day after it launched and started building these guides on how to talk to it and how to give it structure.
Did you have that entrepreneur spirit from start, or you just accidentally stumbled on that?
There's a bit of both. Sometimes you accidentally stumble on something because you've just been learning about it for so long, just trying to start things on the side, failing epically until eventually started to work. I really was struggling to balance all the time, like a full-time job and doing all this consulting on the side was big struggles. There was a few months there where I was trying to balance both and doing a bit on the side in my spare time on the weekends outside of work, where I was just giving out free advice really. I tried to figure out what was going on, what should I do, what am I good at, how do I align that with what I can offer people, what's going to make me money.
All right, welcome Oxley Peckham. Thank you so much for joining this conversation on the pod today. It's really interesting to get to know you and your mission, where we connected at Something First the other day, a couple of weeks ago now. I've had a look at your profile and a bit of what you're doing, especially running Tech Horizon Labs, which is, when I had a chat with you, I was very inspired about how you are using AI to solve problems for businesses. So I thought, yeah, it would be great to have you on the pod today to kind of like learn a bit more about the journey and how you can give some practical advice that can help businesses scale their operations. So, for example, in my community, there are a lot of people that are trying like start a business and may not have huge capital for workforce, hiring so many people. But I know you and I know that there's a lot of ways to actually do things more efficiently now using AI. So yeah, it'll be exciting to get to chat about that, give people like some tips and very strategic advice. And I know you do charge for this, so we're grateful for the opportunity to have you on here. So let's just crack in. Let's crack on. Can you give a bit of just like a very concise intro about your journey, how you started Tech Horizon Labs to help businesses?
I think the journey for me, first of all, thank you for having me on the podcast. The journey for me started since I was very young. It's all about tinkering with tech and taking things apart and understanding how it works. And
Yeah.
I think that's been a big part of who I am. And then as I got older, I realized I was good at helping people with their computers. It came from it didn't have to be overly technical, but also not overly non-technical, sort of like a balance between that. So I was essentially on the Apple tech bench, and I helped probably a few thousand people over that time, particularly businesses and everyday consumers using their devices, selecting the right hardware, the right software. Was working for third-party repairers, so that also means that we were outside of the scope of what Apple was doing and work with products like Microsoft. And then from there, I went and studied mechatronics engineering, and that was a big part of what helped me to understand more of the engineering side. I ended up completing a diploma, and I ended up delivering some advanced diplomas in applied AI and blockchain. So
Wow.
I think that's what you're offering at the moment. Is you doing some training as well in that sort of space, or?
Yeah, absolutely. But more of like people getting into at the moment, like getting into careers like project management, business analysis, which involves solving problems for businesses as well and becoming more efficient. And you can't do that right now without really understanding how to leverage AI for productivity and, just helping deliver more with less, which is very exciting.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much where I think it comes back to is being a good project manager. So like if you use AI, it's like managing a team.
Yeah.
And for me, I realized that I think there's a real opportunity here for those who, you don't have to be overly technical, obviously, like understanding how to use your computer
Yeah.
and how to use your productivity apps like the Google Workspace or Microsoft apps can help deliver a lot. But understanding how to instruct AI from a high level, which is kind of called prompt engineering now,
Yeah.
was a really critical part to that. And I led that after I was using ChatGPT the day after it launched, started building these guides on how to talk to it
Yeah.
and how to give it structure.
Yeah.
And that's what brought me to starting this business, because after a while I had a lot of people asking me for free advice on how to use these models, and then I ended up realizing I should probably start charging for it. So,
Yeah.
um,
And how?
that's where it started. Today it's different, but yeah.
Oh, that's such a very interesting journey. So basically, you're already solving problems for people for free, and that's how you got into your business. Because can you share a bit about that? Because when was that moment like, oh, actually, I can't just continue to be doing this for free. Well, let's just make it into a business. Did you have that entrepreneur spirit from start, or you just accidentally stumbled on that, or what was that journey like?
There's a bit of both. Sometimes you accidentally stumble on something because you've just been learning about it for so long, and just, I mean, it's definitely been a few years where I've just been learning about things, doing passion projects, just trying to start things on the side, failing epically until eventually, started to work. But, there were a few things that did work when I was a lot younger. And during that process, there was a lot of things that were working. And I just kept sort of leaning into that.
Yeah.
It was good to have a few people around me pushing me into that. I think that was like the people I surrounded myself with were really supportive.
Yeah.
Struggling to balance all the time, like a full-time job and doing all this consulting at the side was a big struggle. So there was a few months there where I was trying to balance both and doing a bit on the side in my spare time on the weekends outside of work, where I was just giving out free advice really. And then it got to a point where the company that I worked for ended up going through a transition, and they got eventually acquired by a larger company. It was an AI company. And then I realized that, yeah, I should just spend a weekend to build the website, build out as many systems as I can, just get a bit of an idea of where I'm going, brainstorm with AI, feed it everything I can and go, where's the market here? What should I do? What am I good at? How do I align that with what I can offer people? What's going to make me money? There's some frameworks you can use around that. Really tried to understand the problem I was trying to solve as well, so I could communicate that on my website. And then once I knew that, and I was pretty clear on that problem because I'd been sitting with my clients for so long, yeah, I had a pretty clear picture of what I was trying to do and exactly how I differentiated myself from the other people in the space.
Wow, that's so powerful because I teach my student also like, hey, your problem, you have to be very clear about it. And what you're sharing also is like you had to use a lot of AI to do that. So can you give us some insight on how you did that, like validating your idea, being clear about that problem?
Well, I mean, initially the AI models were okay at doing that. So there was a balance of obviously using some AI and then trying to feed in a lot of your own context, because sometimes it's not always going to get all the context about you or about the people you're talking with. But now with meeting notes, we can actually do that a lot easier.
Yeah.
But that evolved over time. Certainly wasn't 100% clear initially, but I had a general idea, and that felt like it evolved and got clearer and clearer as I talked to more people. Initially, how I went about that, developing clarity around the problem. That initial problem that I was solving did evolve as well. So I had to think about how I would tackle that problem over time. Initially, it felt like I'd seen it for a few years now. I knew people were spending too much on technology, and they were paying for things they didn't need and using these tools that really didn't solve any problems for them. I knew that the tech space was filled with people out there who were pretty much prescriptive about the way they went about solutions. So they would build a solution and really try to spread it as far and wide as possible, which is fine as long as you understand like who that solution serves or where it fits into the market. But sometimes there was like people who were getting overly technical and not really thinking from the business perspective.
Yeah.
Is there a business case here? Is there a problem we're clearly solving? And are we working back from that problem
Yeah.
versus the other way around and letting the tech lead the solution? And I used to say, I got told by some of my mentors that the tail doesn't wag the dog.
Yeah.
That kind of stuck with me. So
No, that's brilliant. I can see it, even on your website when I was having a look, I saw that, oh, you actually start from auditing the opportunity. Like, what is here? Let's get to know you. You even offer like discovery calls, kind of like know the problem. So many people that maybe stumble on learning anything or make.com and they just feel like, yeah, I know how to create automations now. And they just create so many automations and say, I want to sell automation to businesses and it just flops. And some of the things that are reducing confidence from businesses, like this thing does not solve our own problem in our own context. There's nuances that you need to know. You can't just package an automation and sell to everyone and think that will solve problem. So I really appreciate that perspective, and it's clear to see that you're really thinking about adding tangible value to businesses, right? So, but in terms of your background, would you say you were like technical, or you just kind of like geeked out on the AI and then saw so many aspects and benefit and how you can really solve problems with it?
I liked taking apart computers and using computers, so that was technical. I would say I wasn't like the most technical person in the team because there were definitely technicians that I worked with that I was inspired by. That was their bread and butter, and they were known. Everyone would call them up to get support, even the other technicians.
Yeah,
I just had a way of talking to the customer that would open up what problems they were having, so I could go back to the technical team.
yeah,
And then on the other end of that, I did learn how to code with Python. Like
yeah,
they're very object oriented languages. So highly recommend like Python and Dart if you do want to get started in learning it.
yeah,
I didn't get too far into other like more advanced languages other than HTML and CSS. So I do have a background in understanding that and how to work with that sort of logic,
yeah,
which is very much like writing words. It's pretty much like a word based language.
yeah,
It feels like natural language. And then that transitioned into prompting, which felt like you got to build that sort of logic into a statement or a sentence. And that in itself is kind of like a piece of software in that prompt. So that was the transition. I've obviously even got people who are very good at using words around me, like, the lawyers and I would say like wordsmiths or text engineers. They could be really good at that as well and understanding different words to use. I come in from understanding like how the AI works from experimentation,
mm,
because I was seeing what it could do well in. I understood how the AI worked and how it tried to make decisions. And then it was a collaboration between the technical and non-technical side to achieve the goals for the business, which for me, a lot of the time is getting most of the way there without overcomplicating things.
yeah.
And that was a big initial start
Wow.
for most of my solutions.
Oh, that's brilliant. Also had a look at your maybe AI stack, I would say, at least the public ones. I was very impressed on your link tree. I was like, oh, this is so organized. I should probably do something like this as well. But of course, it's impossible to put all the AI tools that you use, and you've smartly categorized the ones you use the most. Which one would you say, kind of like your everyday AI tools that you use, and you've seen a lot of benefit? Because like so many tools are there, and sometimes you feel like you're not catching up when there's another announcement, nano bananas, like this and that. And how do you really think about like these are the tools that would have the best benefit for me?
There's two categories of tools, which is native AI tools and non-native AI tools. So the tools that are built from the AI model out. So that would be tools like ChatGPT, Claude,
Yeah.
Grok, Gemini. And then you can rank those AI tools on different scales of safety to security. So some of them are just more for security research. Others can actually be used in a safe way within an enterprise environment or even just for smaller businesses getting started. So the number one tool that most people are obviously using at the moment is ChatGPT, and that one has the easiest way for you to manage teams and build assistants to share with the team. That one, if you're getting started, highly recommend. OpenAI just launched their community and their academy that they've got a lot of research in their academy, but there are other models that solve different problems like Nano Banana and Gemini is leading in that space. So if you wanted to use something like that was easier than Photoshop and delivered some really good results, then you would certainly look at using a combination of some of those AI tools. And then on the other end, the non-native tools are things like a CRM that's powered by AI that would allow you to focus more on doing the work that you need to do, like building rapport with your customers rather than just doing all the data entry.
No, that's brilliant. I saw like you use that, you have benefit, like tangible benefit from using that against like the standard CRMs.
I met the guys at Clippy very early on when they were first starting out their product. They've been a big partner for me as well over the time with building out solutions, and they're an incredible team. The product, when it was initially launched, I was using because I needed a CRM and I
Yeah.
found them online. And since then, it has evolved through a lot of feedback to become, for me, the simplest CRM I've ever used because I can just connect my inbox and it automatically updates all of my the deals with the information on each deal.
Yeah.
And it connects across LinkedIn. I think they're adding WhatsApp and Facebook now and Slack. They were bringing it all into
Wow.
one inbox, and you can just easily shift the deals through a simple pipeline with meeting notes and scheduling all built in. It for me was the best product for particularly B2B services based companies because it just allowed me to focus on building the connections and seeing who needed to touch base with me versus just a wall of information that I couldn't cut through. It's not for everyone. Like there's some like B2C companies that probably won't work if you're marketing at scale, but for high touch point relationships where you just need to see who needs to be connected with and where your leads are at each stage and what's coming in, it's definitely great for solving that problem.
Wow. Great. Did you know about like you talk about deal stage, all this maintaining relationship, keeping track of interaction with your clients? Did you learn this when you started your business or you've had business experience? Because that's why you're best place to solve business problem because you know the tooling, this business side of things. You're not just like, oh, the technical AI guy.
I spent some time in startups and particularly in like the blockchain space where there is really a lot of noise. The same with AI. I mean, there's a lot of noise. I try to figure out what was going on. Definitely, I've learned a lot of this on the journey, but I did understand some of this terminology before I came in and started to build because, for me, I was helping other businesses inside their businesses select tooling and CRMs and, talk about the different types of relationships, where we were going to go, where we're going to go to the consumer, where we're going to go to other businesses, what was the ideal client here.
Yeah.
So that was something that was definitely, we would speak about. And I did have some frameworks that we used to find the best way to structure the business model and identify the client and the pain points you're trying to solve for them. So that was definitely something that I knew beforehand. And just from starting businesses, just understanding what the whole process is definitely helps. But also, going in with a framework. So that's something I've definitely learned and refined over time. Nowadays, I talk more about like what it's like to prepare your business to scale and eventually either sell it or hand it off. That's typically what I've been exploring more as I've scaled my business. But initially, I just needed to solve a problem, and I was focused very much on learning everything around that.
That's brilliant. And you touched on a very important point. So if there's a business now, they've found you maybe on this podcast and like, oh, we need Oxley, but we don't know what we need and how we even need to adopt AI. What are the initial thoughts? How would you be able to tell them like the business case for using this? Like and do you work with a specific niche or like what does that look like?
Typically, the same. Well, I work within a lot of the admin tasks, so that's typically where most of this gets focused. That's where I see a lot of gains and impact with AI. Obviously, we sit down and we'll audit the opportunities, so look at where AI can fit in, where all the integration points in your existing tech stack might be. So, what sort of tools you're using right now that actually support AI. That's a process that we need to do to prepare whether it's even feasible to adopt AI or if there's a few steps before that in the journey to adopting AI. But in the overall vision and designing with that end state in mind of bringing in AI systems is definitely something we could build a roadmap around once we audit where you are right now and then identify those opportunities, distill it down to, a single few problems that you would really like to solve. And then we can build a pathway to doing that. For me, I try to reduce the cycle time for projects down to as short as possible so that we can quickly audit, jump in, start experimenting with the one or two use cases we've identified that are really going to create the most impact in the shortest amount of time. And then once we've built the first version or the prototype of that, then we experiment with more of the team and then start to scale it out to the rest of the team with the more production in mind. So that's the process I take with AI. It's a little bit different to other technologies where you can kind of just deploy it a lot of the time and it's very simple. There's not much experimentation. But with AI, because it's so variable in what you get with it, you need that experimentation phase more. And I really like to make sure that this is something we can start with small. Like I don't want to take this. I don't want to build a 6 month project before we've delivered any return. I don't want to go and take up 6 months of the team's time before we've delivered any real time savings. So for small businesses, that means a lot. We need to do it in the shortest amount of time, get some gains, and then they can start reinvesting those resources, which is, time and money that they're being saved from the initial project back into building the larger project. And it just works hand in hand with.
That's brilliant, but I assume there's so many challenges. Although small businesses can make decisions quicker and they may be more flexible to change, not as rigid as enterprise level where they've got to go through different levels of approval. But yeah, but in terms of like your use case, what have been your biggest use case gain in your experience?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on different sizes. So typically when you're starting out or even early stages and you're either in that, there's usually two stages. Like if you're in a growth stage, you're just trying to find how to service the existing clients. And that would be building in systems depending on what you're trying to deliver. The admin side for growth, I mean, a lot of the time meeting notes is actually a really big gain where you can get a lot of the knowledge from your team into through meeting notes. So actually building out kind of a brain based on SOPs and your meeting notes or any sort of documentation you have into some kind of GPT or gem in Gemini is actually a really important step, I think, for and right now where we actually have the ability to do that. It's probably only, last few months that's actually become a pretty viable project to do. And that can also help at the start where you're still trying to figure out how to get your clients as well. But there might be different ways. You might be in more of a lead generation stage at the start, and then that would require, I've got lead generation agents on my link tree if you want to use some of those, and there's auditing agents, the range of tools on there where you can just get the business started, identifying who you want to reach out to and having an agent go out and get you those contacts so you can reach out to them. But then, when you're in the servicing side, once you've grown and gotten the leads, then it depends on the business and where the bottlenecks are with servicing, but you'd be surprised what you can do with a brain, like a second brain
Yeah.
and meeting notes.
This has been so insightful. Hopefully, we have another follow up. There's a lot I want to ask. Lead gen is very important. Businesses want to get their lead pipeline, deal flow filled, with quality leads, and there's a lot of solution for that. Yeah, but thank you so much, Oxley, for your time. I really, really appreciate you, and thank you so much for providing so much value. And yeah, thank you.